Yeah, they were like the first two drummers that I was really into, and I would watch videos of them all the time. I would, eventually, a lot of people know like Drummer World. Not a whole lot of people get on there anymore, but when I was a kid, I was on Drummer World all the time, watching videos and just like clicking through the names and watching random. It was how I discovered other drummers and bands that they like. I would discover the drummers and then discover the bands that they were in. I ended up watching videos of Buddy Rich and Neil Peart and so many other great drummers that are featured on that website. So yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Has That podcast. I'm your host Brian. And joining me today is a special guest and actually a fellow PA boy. It's Tate Berkey. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How about you, man? Good to see you.
Not too bad. In fact, the weather's been a little crappy out here. I don't know how bad it is.
Yeah, it was good for a while, and then today it kind of got back to being shoddy. So hopefully it won't last too long.
I think it's affecting me right now because I'm still feeling a little bit tired at the moment. So
Yeah, no, I feel that.
no worries. And actually, I was checking on your Facebook page, and I guess not too long ago you graduated from Temple University.
Yeah, I just finished up 4 years of a jazz performance degree at Temple on this past Thursday, May 11th.
Congratulations there, mate.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Was this actually a degree, or is there like a separate thing you had to do to get you like, your bachelor's?
No, it was just bachelor's in music is technically what I got, but my degree is in, or what I studied was jazz performance, jazz drum set.
I see. And that's also what I did see on your Facebook page too, of like all these different groups as well. And I wasn't sure if one
Yeah.
was like a Steely Dan cover band or is that actually Steely Dan?
Which group are you referring to? Ash and the Facts?
It just said, I think it was, here, let me go check real quick. I think I said you were performing with Steely Dan with guest drummer Tate Berkey. So I was curious.
That was it. That was just the other weekend. I had played. It's a event band from out of like the north central area of Pennsylvania called Into the Spin. Their drummer's name is Jeremy Hummel, so I don't know if people would recognize that name. He was the original drummer in Breaking Benjamin, and he's retired from that band, but he plays a lot in that band and teaches out of Selinsgrove, PA, which is near where I'm originally from. And I was just subbing with that band last weekend for him. He had some family stuff going on, so I was just subbing with him. And they do covers and stuff. We were playing a private party actually, and we had thrown some Steely Dan into the set. So that's what that was about. What wasn't actually Steely Dan. I'm nowhere near the level of Keith Carlock.
I was
But
going to
it was
say,
fun nonetheless to I don't. It's not that often that I get to play Steely Dan. So, but they're one of my favorites.
well, I would say the band was a little extensive too. So I think I remember Steely Dan always having a lot of people in his group, even though I think they were mostly studio. What do you would call a studio band? Because I don't think they really did a whole lot of touring
Yeah,
or a
the
lot
live
live.
band's like a 10, 12-piece band, and I've been doing a lot more of that recently, and so it was fun to do, the Three Horns. We played some Chicago too. They're one of my favorites, so it was fun. But yeah, I was just subbing with that band last weekend, playing some tunes.
I would have to say for Chicago, was it the 25 or 6 to 4 song? Did you play that one?
Yep. Yeah, we played that one. Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm curious if he did it all with just like a single foot pedal, to be honest, because I feel like for me, I've always had trouble just trying to do like that continuous sort of foot pedal for a good, very
Yeah, I
long
mean,
period of
so
time.
the interesting thing with that song is that Danny did double track drums. If you listen to it on separate, the right channel and the left channel, like on headphones, you can hear that there's two different drum parts. And so a lot of people try to emulate that, like chicka chicka ja, chicka chicka ja. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that he played a simple groove once down and then played fills on a separate track, on a separate pass over the recording. And so, like, if you listen during the guitar solo, he's kind of riding on the bell and playing sort of a basic groove. And then there's a lot of like tom fills in that. So he overdubbed all those fills. And I don't know if he overdubbed bass drum or if that was his. I mean, he had a pretty fast foot. There's a lot of examples of where he could keep his bass drum going like continuous eighth notes. There's a lot of like underrated things about his playing. That's one of them that a lot of people don't talk about, is how fast his bass drum was, or how fast he could play the bass drum. So yeah.
I can imagine too. But he was in and around the time of Buddy Rich, right?
Yeah, he was a big Buddy Rich fan and loved a lot of the big band drummers, Sonny Payne and Papa Joe Jones. But yeah, he really loved Buddy Rich, and a lot of his playing reflects a lot of Buddy Rich isms.
Yeah. Well, I guess that explains why the Rock Band 3 was always so difficult to play. That was,
Yeah.
at least that was how I first learned about the Chicago song, to be honest. So, and actually, it's still looking at your Facebook page and checking out some of the friends you had too. I see Earl Bennett and Sean Woodley. I guess how they find you out.
Yeah, I've met those guys through YouTube. I know Earl's a big Chicago fan too, and I do a lot of drum covers on my YouTube channel, and a lot of like Chicago deep cuts, and Earl's a big fan. So I've kind of met a lot of people through YouTube and stayed in touch with them. I've never met either of them in person, but we talk online and talk through. Earl and I talk on the phone every now and then, but through YouTube and stuff like that, I've met a lot of those guys, and they're all great people, and it's great to have those connections when and if you may ever need them. So
I wanted to say I did interview both of them on my little podcast here, but yeah,
great.
Earl was a very cool dude, and
Yeah, very, very nice and generous with his time and gives great advice and just great person to know and chat with when you can. So
I have to say I think he keeps himself pretty busy too. You know,
oh yeah.
in his later years in life.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I wish I had the time to put a drum cover up every day like he still does. I mean, he's been doing that for I don't know how many years now, but yeah, I try to. Man, when I need a little extra push, I go to his channel and just like, man, he's still putting out a video every day. So sometimes it's hard to keep that motivation to continue to do stuff like that when you have people that enjoy it and want to see it. But when I'm busy, sometimes I never have the time to put in to film something or do something like that. But it's been a part of what I do now for the past couple years, and so. Yeah, him and a lot of other guys that do lots of continuous videos are great inspiration and push for that.
I didn't know you have your own little YouTube channel as well, but we'll go into that a little bit here too. So
yeah, sure.
All right. So Tate, welcome to my podcast. The way the podcast works is we just like to get to know you more, both as the individual and as the drummer too. But have you mainly stuck with drums, or have you tried to play like any other instruments?
I've mainly played drums. I mean, when I was younger, I was really into guitar. I took guitar lessons for about a year. And I mean, when I was in high school, I did, percussion and stuff. So I was always doing like mallet percussion, which kind of led to learning how to play keyboard. I had to learn how to play piano for 4 semesters in college. So I can play a little bit of piano, but I mean, it's not like if you called me to play a gig, I would definitely say no. Unless it was like a couple tunes and I had a month to learn them or something. I'm not well versed in language on other instruments, but I can play some chords on piano and guitar, play a couple root notes on bass, but nothing spectacular. It's always pretty much just been the drums.
Just had to check because I didn't know if there would be like any other instruments to lump in here and there too. So
yeah, no, not really.
All right, so I got questions right here. Get to know
Sure.
you a little bit more. So you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll start with the first one. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into drumming?
I'll start with the second half. So I got into drumming, and I'll try and make it as short as possible because I can really go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but
don't worry, you're all good.
everybody can.
I mean, everybody's got a bit of a long story to it, but
yeah. So I
keep
mean,
it within 5 minutes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I got into music when I was pretty young, like 3 or 4 years old. Everybody in my family was always into music. My grandparents, and specifically both my grandfathers on my mom and dad's side, were big into music. My mom's dad was a record collector, and I kind of ended up years later inheriting his record collection, and that's what kind of started me into a little bit of a vinyl obsession. But quick side note. He was always really into music, different rock artists, Heart and Pat Benatar and Foreigner and CCR and bands like that. The Who was a big one for him. So I was always like hearing music and him talk about music. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, was never a musician or anything like that. But his brother, my great uncle, his name's Jackson Berkey. He was in Mannheim Steamroller for a lot of years, which if you don't know Mannheim Steamroller, you recognize some of their music because they have a lot of the instrumental synthesizer Christmas music that's on around the holidays. Like Carol the Bells is a big one, and Deck the Halls, they have a version of that a lot of people know, and Joy to the World. So he was instrumental in the creation of a lot of that music, and they have a lot of original music as well. There's like 7 or 8 original albums of like instrumental music that he created with Chip Davis, who's kind of the brains behind that whole band. he was in that band. He's really the only musical connection that I have in my family. But I would, we would go and see him when I was really young, and I always loved seeing concerts and stuff when I was really young. I remember my parents taking me to see like the Wiggles, and I was always really into it. But my granddad, my dad's father, was an art teacher, and he was really into music. And I remember when I was really young, he had two concert DVDs that he would watch all the time, and I ended up watching them all the time with him, and then kind of taking them from him and watching them. And one was Eric Clapton's "One More Car, One More Rider," which was a live album, and the other one was Cream. So again, Eric Clapton, but it was the Cream reunion that was at the Royal Albert Hall in like 2005. So I was I loved watching those concerts and was really into the music, and Eric Clapton's guitar sounded so cool and the lights were all cool, and I just loved it when I was a kid and became fascinated with the drummers on those two. And anybody that's familiar with Eric Clapton knows he's got like the top drummers in the world playing with him, and on that specific One More Car, One More Rider live album was Steve Gadd. And then the Cream one was, of course, Ginger Baker. So those two guys were like my number ones for a really long time when I was really young. And I eventually got a drum set from a music store. And at that music store, heard about Dale's Drum Shop. Do you know about Dale's Drum Shop? I don't know how near Harrisburg you are.
Harrisburg is about a couple hours, so
gotcha.
I don't think I've heard of it too much. So I think
Okay.
they stick the music stores in around my neck of the woods too. So
Gotcha. I mean, if you ever get the chance to go to Dale's, or if anybody's in the sort of central Pennsylvania area and can go to Dale's Drum Shop, it's a really, really great shop. Lots of stuff. But they used to do clinics all the time. And when I was kind of showing an interest, my parents ended up kind of learning about it through the local music store that was near us that I had gotten my first kit from. And I ended up going to a lot of clinics there. And I mean, it was before I had a private teacher or anything. They were just taking me. And sure enough, around that time, 2005, 2006, was the Mission from Gadd tours. And he ended up stopping at Dale's. And there's a picture that I have. If you look on my Facebook, you can probably find it. I've posted it a couple times, like for his birthday and stuff. I met Steve Gadd when I was like 5. There's a great picture of me like shaking his hand, and I've got a poster that he signed and everything. But he's still like my number one. And so that was my introduction to music and drums, was those two records and seeing Ginger Baker and Steve Gadd. And from there, I started taking lessons when I was 7 with a private teacher that was teaching at the high school that I went to, and I took lessons with him all up through till I graduated high school. His name's Todd Egger. He studied with Joe Morello for a number of years and took some lessons at the Drummers Collective, and is a great teacher and great player. He still plays in bands around the area where I'm from. And, musical upbringing, other than that stuff, it was just, being around music with my family. That was kind of how it happened. And they, always let me play my drums as loud as I wanted to in the basement. And, my dad would always help me put together new things that I was getting. Like I got my first set, and it came with a crash cymbal and a set of hi-hats and a couple toms and snare drum and everything. And then we like bought another tom, and he would help me put that together. So my parents were always supportive of all that, and still are. So yeah, I think that's kind of the beginnings of my my musical upbringing and whatnot.
yeah, actually, that was a good bit to really go off that too. But that's pretty awesome, getting able to get up close to Ginger Baker and Steve Gadd too.
Yeah, they were like the first two drummers that I was really into, and I would watch videos of them all the time. I would, eventually a lot of people know like Drummer World. Not a whole lot of people get on there anymore, but when I was a kid, I was on Drummer World all the time watching videos and just like clicking through the names and watching random, it was how I discovered other drummers and bands that I would discover the drummers and then discover the bands that they were in. I ended up watching videos of Buddy Rich and Neil Peart and so many other great drummers that are featured on that website. So yeah,
I guess, is that Drumming World still up, or are they taken
yeah, I
down?
think Drummer World is still active, and I think you can get on there, and probably a lot of the videos are linked to their YouTube now. But it was like a website that had like a list of drummers on the left side, and you could click through, and there were pictures and diagrams of kits, and there's like pages for every drummer. And so I would just get on there and watch videos like when I was in like first grade, when I could figure out how to use a computer, I would get on Drummer World and watch videos. kind
Yeah,
of
that,
unorthodox for a young kid like that. But I was really into it. And I loved, I would watch the videos and then I would like run down to my kit and try and like remember what I was watching and then figure out how to play it. You know what I mean? Like at really young, and probably sounded terrible, but I was, there's certain videos that like I could sing you the drum parts because I watched them so many times. And same with those live albums. I've listened to them so many times and watched them like every day when I was a kid. I could sing you all of the Eric Clapton guitar solos or all of the bass lines or the Steve Gadd drum fills or whatever. So
I wanted to say it's always interesting when it's bequeathed from your parents or even like in this case your grandparents.
yeah.
So that's how it kind of was with me too. My dad was always a big collector when it came to sort of vinyls, and we actually used to have a shelf all the way back there. It was like filled with vinyls, cassette tapes, CDs, and all that stuff. When they used to roll with that before we started getting more digital these days. And it's also interesting too with, I guess, how old are you right now? You're in
I'm
your
22.
20s. You're 22?
22, yeah.
So yeah, we at least had the internet, so our parents didn't really have that, so they really couldn't take any sort of videos with their iPhones to like, try
Yeah.
to do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my mom tells me stories like all these records that I inherited from my pap. My mom tells me stories about how every payday he would go right to the mall and go to the record store that was in the mall, and he would get the newest 45s and newest LPs that had just come out, and that was kind of how he collected them. And it's kind of funny. You can kind of see like the timeline of albums. I mean, he had some Beatles records and stuff like that, but a lot of 70s and 80s rock stuff too. So
It seems like vinyl's kind of making a comeback.
yeah,
Is that
definitely.
happening out there too?
There's more and more stores and more high fidelity, stores and places to get that kind of stuff. And everybody's, buying the like Crosley suitcase record players at their local Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. And I mean, people are, new records are coming out on vinyl and they're re-releasing old albums on vinyl and stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely a different way to listen, and it's like the cliche of like, oh, you've got the physical product and everything. But I mean, it is cool to have, the little book that's in there and the lyric sheets and all that kinds of stuff for people that are into that physicality that comes with music. It's really something.
I think for some people, it's like having the artwork, whether it was
Yeah.
like their live show or maybe just like random sort of art thrown together. It was like psychedelic or something like that. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can get. There's some great Chicago records that I've found that that you get like a huge poster inside of it, and lots of cool extras that came, like the one of the Chicago records that the Carnegie Hall. It was right around the early 70s. It was a live record. It was 4 LPs, but inside was an insert. And I forget. See now, so this is something that Earl would be able to like. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's what that was." If I remember correctly, they had a printout in it that had all of the, for like every state, it had all like the voting rules or something like that. It was like because they wanted people to go out and vote because it was a big election, I guess, in the early 70s, and they had an insert in it that like and it's such a cool like piece of history that just inside this record is like this insert that talks about like the voting regulations and stuff they wanted their young fans to go out and vote. You don't see, I mean, a lot of people now it's just like social media, but that was a way that they kind of did that, and a cool little piece that's you found inside a record when you got it.
yeah, nowadays, like just put up these little polls on the
Yeah,
social media
exactly.
pages. Hit yes or no, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
and that'll give you a percentage, like how many people voted yes, how many people voted no. So
Yeah.
it's cool analytics, but I mean, I think these days it kind of takes away that sort of personal interaction or
Yeah, yeah.
anything like that. But you did this, actually, one of the questions was about people that influenced you too. So you did mention about Steve Gadd and Ginger Baker, so I guess, who are your top 5 influences?
My top 5, well, I'd put Gadd up there. Oh, probably like, I mean, because I've really been into jazz drumming now too, because that's what I've studied at school the past however many years. So Elvin Jones is a big one. Danny Serafin, of course. What is that? 3 now?
3.
3. Another big one for me has been Philly Joe. He's played on so many records that I love and listen to. It's 4. Let's see, I'll get another one. And I'll throw Keith Carlock into the mix. He's sort of like my main guy when it comes to players today. I try and go and see him every time he comes through town if I can. and I've met him a couple times, and he's a really great guy, and just a otherworldly player. So those are my five today. It'll be five completely different ones when you ask me in a month. But
Yeah. Actually, I didn't know where you're gonna fit Ginger Baker at. Where you gonna tie him in with like?
yeah, I mean Ginger was really cool, and I loved, like I loved on that live album that I had watching the Toad solo. But kind of the thing with Ginger is that a lot of his, and not to, I'm not trying to roast Ginger or dethrone him, but a lot of the stuff that he played, you could hear in a lot of other players. He copped a lot from a lot of other players, a lot of Art Blakey and a lot of Mitch Mitchell, although they were contemporaries. You get a lot of the same in there, but Ginger didn't have as much impact in that music. Hasn't had as much impact on me as some of the other guys. I mean, he didn't have nearly as vast a selection of tunes as someone like Steve Gadd or Philly Joe or even Elvin. Elvin is on so many records and so many different jazz styles alone. So
I don't know what other bands Ginger played in after Cream had disbanded, and then
I mean, he was in a couple bands before Cream, and then he played for Blind Faith, and then he kind of had his own projects after that. He had a couple different groups. One was Ginger Baker's Air Force, and that was kind of early 70s. And then he his career is just very interesting, and I mean it's a storied career, but it's very interesting. And if you've never seen Beware of Mr. Baker, that documentary, it's a great watch. It's there's a lot of funny moments in that, but a lot of telling things about him and his career. But yeah, he had a couple different projects and stuff, but it wasn't like you could get through Ginger Baker's discography in little time. So
a whole lot to take care of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beware, Mr. Baker.
Yeah.
That's such a guy, catchy. I don't know. Were you a big fan of South Park by any chance?
Yeah, I just got HBO Max like in November and started kind of watching through a lot of the episodes. So I've been getting more into it. It's not one of my favorite shows, but it's definitely up there for me.
I just have to laugh every time I hear Ginger because they did a satire episode. It was kind of ripping on ginger kids or ginger people.
Yeah.
So
there's that's a great episode.
So not sure if Ginger Baker was actually ginger, as they would say, but so that's just why it makes it laugh too. But it's at least a little bit of funny paradox nonetheless.
Yeah.
So all right, so they talk about influences. All right, let's jump into your drum kit right here. So I'm assuming it's in a different room right now because I don't know if you're still in your dorm.
So I'm in my apartment at the moment, and I have a couple different drum sets. I'll talk about the one that is kind of my home recording. Everybody kind of sees it the most on my YouTube channel, and occasionally at gigs. I used it just this past weekend in those videos that you saw on Facebook that were pretty recent. It's a Ludwig Sky Blue Pearl, 22 by 16 inch kick drum. 10 by 7, 12 by 9, 14 by 14, 16 by 16 toms. And it's a just the classic maple. I have two classic maple kits. I have that one that kind of stays at home. I use that for a lot of my videos, a lot of recording and occasional gigs at home that I can take that kit out to. It's just a bigger kit. And so, a lot of people, it's like they as much as nice and as cool as a 22 by 16 inch kick sounds, you don't realize how much room it takes up till you set it up on a small stage, and it's like taking up a lot of room. But that's the drums, and I have a variety of Zildjian cymbals that I use. Recently, I've been using an old A 20-inch ride a lot, 19 and 17-inch K crashes. I have a K 20-inch ride that I use a lot too. Some old A real thin new beat hats that I've been liking using on a lot of gigs. But I have a set of K hats that I use a lot too. Trying to think what else. Remo ambassador heads for the most part. I have a couple different snares that I kind of rotate for different gigs. I just acquired a Superphonic 14 by 5.5, mid 60s, doesn't have an internal muffler. And I have a Slingerland chrome over steel shell that I use every now and then. It's a 10 lug that's really nice. I'm trying to think what else. I have a couple custom snare drums that a friend of mine's dad built. My friend, his name is Billy Bellino. He's a great drummer. He goes to Belmont University in Nashville, and just great musician overall. But his dad is kind of a wood craftsman, woodworker, and he's made some stave shells for me that are really cool. One's maple, and then one that actually kind of matches the sky blue pearl kit. I had him do like the Ducko fade that you see on a lot of older Ludwig kits, but he put that blue wrap on it. But it's actually a cherry stave shell, and so I have those, and I use those every now and then. But yeah, that's kind of the drums and cymbals. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's it.
I wasn't gonna say, did you have a cowbell?
Yeah, I use the LP, the Steve Gadd LP Mambo Bell if I ever use cowbell on gigs.
I know you're not doing Don't Fear the Reaper, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big one. Or like just this band last weekend when I was subbing with them. There's some songs that I'll play quarter notes on the cowbell with my right hand, and then play the groove between the hi-hat and the snare drum with my left, which is a lot of fun. I do that with the wedding band that I play with too, and I play Ludwig kit with that band too. I'm sure if people see, like when I post on Instagram pictures of that kit, it's a Ludwig classic maple as well, but it's a little bit smaller because it's just easier to set up and get around places here in the city. It's a 20 by 14 inch kick, 12 by 8, 14 by 14 toms, and I have a Ludwig chrome over steel rocker snare drum that I keep with that kit to use. But still, like all the same Zildjian cymbals and stuff. My cymbals and snares kind of travel around with me, and then I use a couple different Ludwig kits. So that's them. I'm trying to think. I've been back and forth between Vic Firth and Vader sticks right now. That's the only other thing.
You did jump ahead with the drumsticks.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I wasn't sure if you could do like the Neil Peart set where you're gonna have like bells or chimes or even a gong in some places here or there.
I love Neil. I wish I could afford to carry around a kit like that. Or I mean, even the electronic setup that he had like in the '80s was really cool. But no, I'm not fortunate enough to have that kind of stuff to carry around. Maybe one day if the music calls for it. It's kind of always been my motto. If the music calls for it, I'll have it. Even if I don't, the littlest thing down to like a cowbell. If I don't need to carry that cowbell around with me, it's one less thing to have to worry about and set up and take longer to tear down at the end of a night and all that. So that's kind of my motto with that. If the music calls for it, I'll use it. But if I can get away with not having to have extra stuff, I won't worry about it.
I was getting a kick out of the Saturday Night Live skit they did with the cowbell with I think it was Will Ferrell who was actually playing it, and I always had to say Don't Fear the Reaper. Yeah. So yeah.
That's a classic.
So I didn't know if that was going to be you actually doing that whenever the song was playing.
Well, then I need someone to play drum set if I was going to play cowbell. So
I'd say twerk in there, Tate. Let's go. That sort of thing.
They'd have to pay me extra.
All right. Fair enough, too. So, but I guess you did mention about electronic sets. I guess have you ever played on one like an Alesis, Roland, or any of those other brands?
Other than trying them out in a music store, I've never played like a gig with one of them.
No.
So I've just never been in that. Actually, I guess no, that's not true. I'm making a liar out of myself. Years ago, I did this music school that I went to that's in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, called the Uptown Music Collective. It was kind of it's a nonprofit that has lesson programs and performance programs for middle school and high school students. And I was a student there, like outside of being in high school. I was a student there for 5 or 6 years, and they always do different shows and stuff, and I was a part of a lot of them. And we did a Michael Jackson tribute. And we did sort of a hybrid kit for that show, if I remember correctly. I think we used a real snare and then electronic toms and then real cymbals, just so we could kind of get some of those different 80s sounding, sounds that are on some of those like Bad and stuff like that. Some of those Michael Jackson records that those drummers used hybrid kits. So that was kind of what we ended up doing. But we still wanted to have the acoustic elements because a lot of the stuff that's on like Thriller, that's all acoustic drums. And so we kind of had the best of both. But that was probably the only time I've used an electronic kit for like a performance. Other than that, it's just like I've noodled around on them in music stores and stuff like that. So
I was gonna say you're in an apartment.
I don't own one.
I was gonna say you're in an apartment, so I wasn't sure if if you're also doing practice in there, if you had to use an electronic set just to practice or do anything like that.
I mean, since I moved into this apartment, I've had a drum kit here, but I usually only play it if I'm also jamming out with my roommates because they're also musicians. So, and we don't get a whole lot of noise problems here. Everything's pretty well insulated, and I'm in my bedroom, and the place where we play is in the basement, the bottom level of the building that we're in. But I usually practice over in the music building. I'm like 2 blocks away from it, so not a big worry so far. Although I just graduated and I won't have access to that building anymore, so I've got to figure something out. I have a set of those Zildjian, like the L80 low volume cymbals. And I've got a couple practice pads that I can set up, so I should be able to fare decently with that setup when I have to kind of switch over to using that to practice. So
I would say there's no shame in moving back in with your parents too. So.
Yeah, well, the only shame with that is that it keeps me a little further away from the city where I've been playing a lot. So that's the only issue with that.
Don't want to get stuck in the traffic jams or whenever Flyers or Phillies are on TV.
Yeah, the area where I'm from, where my parents live, is about 2.5 hours away from Philadelphia, so it would make my commute to gigs a little bit longer.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
It is funny when you mentioned about Belmont University, because I was in Nashville not too long ago. It was actually in October of last year, and
okay,
we had passed through. We didn't really get to see like much of the campus or anything like that. It was mainly the hop on, hop off bus, and just gave us a nice little history, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I visited my friend while I was there. I went to Nashville in March of this year, and while I was on spring break, and kind of saw some people and said hello to some people that I know that are down there, including my friend that goes to Belmont, and saw the campus and stuff like that, but mainly kind of toured the city for the first time, and saw a bunch of bands at different places, went to Broadway, where all those bars where there's like music every day, all day, and stuff like that. And it's a really cool place. It's somewhere that if I can get work, it's somewhere that I would really like to move to at some point, and take a shot at kind of the touring gigs that and recording sessions that kind of happen there. It would be a really cool thing to be a part of.
As I don't do what Willie Nelson did, is just fall asleep on Broadway. So.
Yeah. Well, it's packed. There's a lot of work just on that street alone. I know some guys that play in that area and make a living just playing on Broadway. So
I would say, yeah, there were a lot of young kids when I was down there, and it was a little bit of a mix, but everybody was obviously like a cover band. It wasn't like anybody was like doing like maybe a whole lot of their original material, but
yeah, there's some places that are catered more towards the tourists that just want to hear cover music, and they want to hear their favorite Jason Aldean, Blake Shelton, they want to hear all that kinds of stuff. Chris Stapleton,
Play Freebird.
And they want to hear stuff like that too. But I mean, how many bars I walked by and I was hearing songs that I play with my wedding band, Mr. Brightside and Don't Stop Believin', and Play That Funky Music. It's like, it's not just country anymore down there. But like I went into one of the honky tonk bars that was a lot more old school, like you paid with cash and that was it. And it was a really cool band. I wish I remember the name of it, but there was a guy playing upright bass, a guy playing a telly, and then a drummer. It was a 3-piece, and the guy playing upright bass sang too. And they played a mix of covers and originals. It was really cool. And I mean, they were selling their own CDs and stuff. It was a really cool band.
I think I know who you're talking about, but it could be a different artist. But was it Wild Bill and the Bruisers?
Maybe. If I remember the name, I would like the bassist was crazy. He was standing up on the bass and twirling around and all this stuff. It was really cool.
I was actually supposed to have him on, but unfortunately we had connection issues too, unfortunately. So,
oh, okay. Wow.
I think it is.
Maybe it'll work out at some point.
Probably.
That'd be awesome.
I think it is Wild Bill, because he was doing a whole lot of the things like you were describing, like he was riding the bass, he was putting it up behind his head.
He kind of reminded me of like Jim Carrey, the faces he was making and stuff. He almost looked like Jim Carrey in a way. It was like Jim Carrey in a country band playing the bass.
I was gonna say, is he making like all those funny faces too with the way it was on the mask?
But I mean, really, really, really entertaining band. But they played a mix of covers and originals. It was really cool.
It was about what Dad said. Like, go look for the group that has like the upright bass, because they did a good show of it. There was actually another bass. I can't remember his name at the moment, and then I know he had mentioned a name, but he was doing more of the bluegrass sort of style. He wasn't as crazy, but he was like still at least like riding it and just like, you can guess, going up and down the neck like crazy too. I mean,
that's the kind of country music that I'm into and interested in playing. I haven't had the chance, just because the area where I grew up and where I'm at now, there's not a huge market for that music, but I've definitely been getting into it more as I'm looking at maybe making a move to Nashville or something like that. It's a really cool genre of music that's got a lot of different aspects to it that a lot of people maybe don't realize or check out. So
Well, it's one of those things. Like, it's better when it's live, and then it is
yeah,
like
definitely.
listening to it on the album too. Because
Hmm.
I don't know, like the album is like just pretty straightforward. It's like, here's a song, we just play it through, maybe not going too crazy with the solos or anything like that.
Yeah,
And then when the live comes around, we're probably going a lot more crazier. Probably a
yeah,
good number of beers in us at the moment. So
yeah, yeah. The things that beers can add to a performance, good
yeah,
and bad.
absolutely too. But when you do move to Nashville, good luck there, bud. I wish you all the best. So,
Thanks, man.
but you didn't mention about Sticks. Can you just mention him again? I think I missed him.
Yeah, I've been kind of experimenting with sticks recently. I've been playing Vic Firth for a lot of years. And everybody always experiments with what sticks they want to play. For a while, I've been using the David Garibaldi Jam Masters for a lot of like pop rock gigs. They're decent, not super heavy. They're kind of like a beefy 5A that's a little bit longer. Um, and for jazz gigs, I was using AJ2s for a while, but I just kind of started getting back to looking at Vaders. I tried Vaders for a little bit when I was younger, and kind of went back to Vic Firth when I was sizing down. I was playing like I loved the Chad Smith Vader models, but those sticks are like 2Bs. They're huge, and they work for Chad Smith because he's bashing in stadiums. But I didn't really need that big of a stick, and so I was kind of going back to Vic Firth. But anyways, now I've been checking out Vader sticks. My teacher that I had this just my last year here at school, Steve Fiddick, is a Vader artist, and he brought in a bunch of different pairs for me to try out. And so I've been using the swing sticks a lot for jazz gigs and lighter gigs. And the recording model is really nice, and the it's like super jazz or something like that. It's a really nice stick too. It's a little beefier, but works really well for like big band playing and some of the heavier playing that I do too. But the recording sticks are really nice. They're kind of a barrel tip between a 5A and a 5B. So yeah, it's been kind of, but like I still have like a ton of Vic Firth sticks that I've acquired, bought over the past couple years. You go into a drum shop and you buy two pairs of sticks because why not? And then they just sit around until you need them. So I've been back and forth between the Vic sticks that I still have, the David Garibaldis and stuff like that, and the newer Vaders that I've been trying out. So
I wish I had $1 for every time I heard people say it's Vader. It's pronounced Vater because it's
is it
German.
Vader?
It is Vater, yeah.
Man, the amount of people that say Vader. Okay.
Well, it's
So
America
there's
too. We tend to butcher Chinese food,
yeah.
and then
Well, I mean,
Asian words.
they're a Boston company, right? They're an American company, but I guess it's the last name that's Vader. Okay.
I mean, I know some people might correct me, and I was curious because it sounded like it was a German brand name or something like that. So, and is it spelled Vater? Just like curious.
Vater. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be pronounced Vater in German,
Vater. Okay.
which means
Interesting.
Vater. So,
Hmm.
but don't worry, you're not the only one. Everybody,
Oh yeah, no, I mean more people say Vader than they do Vader. So
I mean, we
interesting.
can't think of Darth Vader the whole time. That's the thing. So,
And that's spelled differently. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, but it's okay. I tend to forgive people at this point because if you know how America goes, we tend to butcher certain things too. Like I
oh
said, with
yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
food
no.
and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, not much about that. All right, let's jump into your YouTube channel a little bit. I guess when did you start it?
I mean, I think the first video that I uploaded on my YouTube channel was like 2012. So it's been around, I've had that account for a really long time. But I kind of got into being more active on it, I would say like my junior year of high school. So like 2018, I'll say. I kind of started putting up a cover here and there, or I would take like my GoPro to a gig and I would film and then put something up every now and then. And then I got more serious about it and started putting up content a lot more regularly when I started college. Um, my freshman year, I kind of started recording more drum covers, and it just kind of gave me something to do in my downtime. Because I was, I just moved to the city and didn't have a lot going on other than my schooling stuff. So I was on weekends when I didn't have stuff going on. I would record a set of covers when I was home, So like I was home for a week, for Thanksgiving vacation, or I was home over winter break, and I would record, and I still do this now. I would record like 10 videos or something, and then just edit them when I had downtime when I was at school. I would put all the videos onto a hard drive, and then just have the hard drive with me, and I'd edit the videos and then schedule them to upload. And that's still kind of how I do it, because everything that I record is at my family's house, where all my recording gear is and where my main drum set is at. And so, yeah, I got more serious about it when I was a freshman in college and started kind of doing a lot of the music that I was really into, and still am. A lot of the Chicago stuff and Tower Power and Steely Dan, a lot of horn band stuff. Because I noticed too that there weren't a lot of people that were diving into that kind of music. And so I kind of wanted to display the drumming that's on the really great drumming that's on some of those albums and songs that people sometimes overlook. And so that's kind of the basis of my channel. And now it's just, I put songs up that I enjoy, songs up that I'm learning from or learning about, artists and stuff like that. It's still kind of all in the same vein of like 70s rock, soft rock, yacht rock, horn band, funk type stuff. But I've stretched into doing more Jeff Porcaro stuff now, and I've been getting into J.R. Robinson and Rick Marotta more recently. So I've recorded some covers doing songs that they've played on. But yeah, I've just been trying to keep it as regular as I can. It's been hard now that I've been working more as a gigging musician in Philadelphia to find the time to, and now when I go home, it's like I don't want to spend all my time recording covers. I want to spend time with my family, or sometimes I've got a sub gig that I'm doing or something. But when I find the time, I'll record a couple and edit them when I have downtime and mix them and everything, and then upload them onto my channel kind of in a staggered sort of bi-weekly schedule if I can. So that's the main purpose, or what I do with my channel. It's mainly covers, and then I still take my camera to gigs, and just set it up, and I'll record the whole gig. I usually use it just to get, feedback on my live playing, and watch, I just try to sit down and watch through the whole performance and make notes and figure out what I can do to better my playing live. And if there's something that I find that is decent enough to put up on the channel, I'll do that as well. So yeah.
I was gonna say, are we also thinking like doing vlogs or anything like that? You just mainly just what
I
you're
thought
doing?
about it. It's just a lot of time. It's a real time consuming to do that. And it would be right now. I don't think my channel is able to be monetized. So maybe once I kind of get past that point, like I've passed the 1,000 subscriber point, but I don't think I have the number of watch hours that you need, or something like that. So I can't be monetized yet, but maybe I'll stretch that out further so I can have some videos that could be monetized. Because of course all the covers can't be monetized since they've got copywritten material in them. But that's, I'm not, it was more just about kind of sharing the music that I was into playing, and getting feedback from people. It's been really great to get, not just positive, of course, but also criticism from people. Both on my drumming and how my drums sound and how my mix sounds and stuff like that. So always looking for that. But yeah, maybe gig vlogs and stuff like that in the future would be something that I could do if people are interested in it. That's the thing too. I'm trying to put up stuff that people are interested in. People seem to really enjoy kind of these deep cuts of songs that they maybe know, but they don't see a lot of people dive into. So that's been a lot of fun.
I was gonna say, do you think that also ties in with like what do you hope to achieve with your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I mean, I my main thing is kind of to bring forth some, like I said, some of the deep cuts that maybe not as many people know, or have people revisit things that they've maybe not listened to in a long time, or checked out at all. I've hipped a lot of my friends, peers, contemporaries to, records that maybe they would have otherwise not checked out. There's a lot of people that diss Chicago and just say that band's a ballad band, and that because they know all the 80s hits that, You're the Inspiration, or even in the 70s with If You Leave Me Now and Just You and Me. But, you listen to Chicago 5, and that's a heavy record with a lot of great, playing on it, odd meter and horn solos and all sorts of great playing. I mean, the first the first 10, 11 Chicago records are all really great with a lot of great material on them. And so I would love to be able to cover all the music on all those records at some point. It's just that's a lot of time to put into it, and so I try to go for quality over quantity now with what I'm doing. There was a while where I was like putting a video up every week or two every week when I had the time, especially during the pandemic, when I had the downtime to just sit down and learn the songs and record them. But now it's kind of like I want to really put the time into making sure that my playing is reflective of what's on a song. And so I try to learn it the best I can and orally transcribe what's going on and get a decent solid take that does justice to what's on that recording. And so now it's kind of like one or two a month is where I'm at. But I hope that, my hope is that just the quality continues to get better. I still record with an iPhone, or at least my video with an iPhone. So that's what I'd like, is to continue to just, you know, bring forth that music that maybe not as many people know but are into, and make it worthwhile, and up the quality as best I can in my playing and my production.